Okay, welcome everyone to today's live coaching. And of course, this today is day 6 of our live coaching, business live coaching challenge. That's going to happen for 1,000 days. So you are welcome today. So as you join us, go to the comment section and type an introduction of who you are, where you are joining from, and then what business you do. And the reason we want you to do this is that I want to create a community where even within this business life, we can do businesses with each other. I know that in the past we've had people from different countries, people joining us from the United States, people joining us from Liberia, from Cameroon, from Ghana, of course, Nigeria, and different places. And then we have a lot that we can share with each other. So today we are handling the topic, how to create business plans that work. This is very important because it came from my personal story. When I left Shell and needed to start a business, I thought that the very first thing and the most important thing was to set up my business plan, to write a business plan, because everybody talks about business plan, and then you go to business schools in those days. Everybody talked about business plan. Everything was business plan. So I got caught up in the business plan craze and thought, okay, if I didn't have business plan, I wasn't going to start what I was doing. Now, getting a business plan was very, very complicated at the time. It was very complicated. I just didn't know how exactly to begin it. And at that time, maybe it's not today what it used to be. At that time, it was such a complicated thing. There was no internet like we know it today. There was no internet like we know it today, where you could just go online and type business plan template and you will get a business plan template. In those days, we didn't have internet the way that we know it today. So it was this mysterious black box. Again, the idea at the time was that only very few people, the people who worked in management consulting like Arthur Anderson, like PwC, and all those people who could create a business plan. So I was lost, I was confused, I didn't feel capable of doing the business plan by myself. I didn't have the competency to do the business plan by myself. So I started asking around, and then of course I had a friend. He was my secondary school mate in those days, and then he was running this very successful consulting firm. I approached them to do a business plan, for my consulting business that I was starting at the time. And these guys charged me 2 million naira. They charged me 2 million naira. It's because business plan was so complicated. They showed me samples of business plans they had done. It had all these complicated charts and statistics and numbers, and then, volumes and volumes of pages and all that. And then, of course, we're talking about 2 million naira in 2008. So that was a lot of money. That would be probably an equivalent of, I think the dollar was less than 100 naira at the time. So yeah, but that was a lot of money to do a business plan. So even if it was like they were charging me $20,000, and then this is a business I hadn't even started. You see, but they were the experts. They were the knowledge gatekeepers when it came to building business plan. Yeah. So I said no, 2 million naira, no. Anyway, so I had to look for alternatives. And so I approached my banker because these bankers are used to seeing business plans. They are used to having business owners or entrepreneurs who wanted facility from the bank present business plans. And so I had to approach him and said, well, this is the situation. They are charging me 2 million naira to do business plan. I don't want to commit that kind of amount, So is there a workaround? And so he took it upon himself, and then he came up with this business plan. My company at the time was called Giant Thoughts International. That was the first company I started with when I left Shell. And so he did this business plan for Giant Thoughts, and then lots of pages of charts, of statistics, of market data, and all that. Ladies and gentlemen, that was 2008. This is 2024. Since he did that thing, I never opened it again once. I have not even looked at it. So at some point, I began to wonder, why do people make so much noise about business plan, business plan, business plan? Because I found out that 99% of the time, people never go back to touch that business plan. 99% of the time, people never open it. And then years after, the business that they started will be like miles apart from whatever that document called business plan was that was given to them. Then when I now working with Stanford University, Stanford Seed, and also teaching at the Lagos Business School, I discovered a better way to do a business plan, and actually a practical way, a way that actually worked, not just doing business plan to fulfill all righteousness, because unfortunately the banks and then the funding institutions and the venture capitalists, in those days, everybody said business plan, business plan, business plan. Yeah, but these business plans were not working. One more story before I go to how we can actually do it in 9 steps. The other story was during the UWIN program. UWIN was a youth entrepreneurship grant program that was started by Jonathan's government in Nigeria many years ago. So, and I happened to be one of the judges in the UWIN business plan competition. So there were literally tens of thousands of business plans. And what I discovered was these business plans were quite soulless. People just did it for the sake of fulfilling righteousness, but it really meant nothing. Because on particular days, there was a way we segmented the days that we interviewed the potential grant winners. We segmented, this particular day, we will listen to business plans in agricultural sector, and maybe not just agricultural sector. We'll look at those who want to do poultry, those who want to do fishery and all that. And so one of the strangest discoveries, for me was that most of those business plans that people were presenting during the business plan competition, the UWIN business plan competition, they were exactly the same. So they just changed the business name, changed the address, and then it was like, a copy and paste thing. I now discovered there were actually people, and those people still exist, who do business plan writing as a business. So you approach them, and then they will do your business plan for you. So apparently during the UWIN, there were people who were charging all these potential grant winners some money. I think at that time, as much as 30,000 naira for a business plan. Which looking back, I think is a very dumb thing to do because I don't think that another person, a total stranger, who is just doing this thing commercially, would actually capture your business plan, the way you, the promoter, the person that the thing came to, it came to your spirit. So nobody can actually pen it down for you the way you can. Now, and then you ask, okay, do I have the skills, and how do I put it in such a way that if I'm approaching the banks, they will be able to give me funds to start my business and things like that. Yes, that's what I'm going to teach you right now. That's what I'm going to teach you right now. But just depending on these commercial business plan writers to capture the essence of your business, it is I don't know how that works. The other thing I discovered about the business plans that people brought for the competition was that the cash flow projections, usually there's a space for cash flow projection. The cash flow projections were outrageous. They were just out of this world. In fact, sometimes, we asked the people, the candidates, to explain their cash flow projection, to give us their assumptions and their rationale. I remember this particular case. The UN grant at that time was 10 million naira maximum. Okay, but for some people we gave 3 million, some we gave 7, some we gave 5. But the cap was 10 million. And then this gentleman came with a proposal to do poultry. And he was asking us for the full sum of 10 million naira. And his cash flow projection had 2.3 billion. Like in 2 years, he was going to turn the 10 million naira to 2.3 billion. Wow, wow, wow. So I just asked him how in the world, he was going to do that. Of course, he couldn't explain that. And then secondly, I asked this gentleman, have you handled 10 million naira before? He said no. Have you handled 5 million? No. Have you handled, I came all the way down like Abraham and God, negotiating for Sodom and Gomorrah. So I came all the way down to 500,000 naira. This guy had not seen 500,000 naira in one place. And then you have not turned 10,000 naira into 20,000. And then you are telling me that if I give you 10 million, you are going to turn 10 million naira into 2.3 billion naira in 2 years. So it didn't make sense. So let me take you through a very, very simple do-it-yourself business plan. Now, so you can actually capture these things. Then you can go to, with all this information, you can go to, if the bank needs it, then you can go to the bank and ask them for a template, or you can approach a professional to basically put this information that came from you in a template that the bank is asking for. But nobody can capture the essence and the soul of your business as you, because it came to you. So nobody can capture it as much as you. So you can capture it using these 9 steps I'm going to show you, and then you can give it to a professional to standardize or so, and then to put numbers to it. Okay, so let's get started with the 9 steps. Okay, of course, I've already mentioned to you while we are doing this, I asked myself if I had just 1,000 more days to live, and I have to impart the most valuable lessons I've learned to the world. What would I teach? This is why I do what I'm doing. I do not want to carry my wisdom to the grave. I want it documented. And the reason I want to do it, I'm doing this for you, free, is because I want to help 10,000 African families to come out of generational poverty. The generational poverty is ravaging Africa, and it's totally unnecessary, given the fact that this continent is not lacking in any resource, but we are the poorest. And I want to change that. And then the second reason, what's in it for you and why you want to be here every 8 p.m. daily. But some days when I have something that clash with the 8 p.m., we do it a little earlier, like 5:30, 5 p.m. But if you follow the page, you will always get the update. So the other reason is I want to help you to scale your business into a global chain. And you see, Zig Ziglar said something a couple of years ago, the late Zig Ziglar. He said, you can get anything you want if you help enough other people get what they want. All right. So I also want to build a global business that impacts countries in the Pacific, in Africa, and in the Caribbean. That's been my dream since the 1980s, 1981 specifically. And so this is part of the process. As your business is becoming big and scaling, so is mine. All right. Okay. And the third major element of this 1000 days is to build a loving family and to nurture confident, world changing children, who are responsible, who make godly choices, who take initiatives, to lead the world. That is the main essence. All right. So there are 9 steps to creating a business plan that works. So you as a promoter, you as the visionary of this business, and no matter how small or how big you are starting, you need to give attention to these 9 elements. And these 9 elements of every business, whether you are in manufacturing or you are in fashion designing or you are in beauty care products or you are in farming or you are in real estate or you are in financial sector or you are in technology, whatever you are in, if you're in a SaaS, this same thing, these 9 elements are present in every business. Therefore, to create your business plan, you need to cycle through these 9 questions I'm going to ask you. And then in each of them, you write down the answer, you make your notes, let it become, these things will help you to achieve clarity. Because for me, the most important goal or role of a business plan is actually clarity. Clarity, first of all, for you, before we talk about clarity for others. And then, but people think that the most important part of doing business plan is to get funding. Yeah, that might be part of it, but that's not the most important thing. It really needs to be very, very clear to you. I have had situations where people go through this process and then they discover that they don't need funding. Okay, so you might actually, because they developed better clarity about their business model and how to make it happen. So the first question is with regards to your customer, the people you actually want to serve. So the question you will ask in this first element is, who are the specific groups of people or organizations that you aim to reach and serve with your products and services? You've got to be very, very as specific as possible, who you really want to serve, because you can't do business for everybody. At least when you are starting, you really want to be very, very specific. Okay, so if you are into beauty care products, are you targeting the high-end professional business women? Okay, or are you going for the women in the fishermen villages, like the people in the lower Keda? Because this will have a lot of consequence for the remaining 8 questions. You have to be very clear in your mind who you really want to serve. Like when I started my coaching and consulting business after I quit Shell, I was looking at the mass market, and it was very difficult because ultimately I discovered that the mass market were more interested in entertainment and in freebies than products that would improve their minds. I discovered that this mass market were still struggling with the lowest form. Like if you remember Maslow's pyramid, what will we eat, what will we wear, and who they will relate with, and things like that, all those basic things. And so I was coming with knowledge product for the wrong customer segment. Those people need food, they need alcohol, they need entertainment, they need television, they need Netflix. They don't need knowledge that can lift them. So you've got to be, oh, they need it, but they don't want it. So you've got to be very specific. Who exactly are you creating value for? All right. Maybe you want to go into real estate. You've got to be certain who you are targeting. You might say you are focusing on the Africans in diaspora. So if you're in Ghana, you might be focusing on the Ghanaians in diaspora. If you're from Nigeria, you might be thinking about the Nigerians in diaspora, Nigerians in Canada, in Europe, in the United States. This is going to determine a lot of other things. So the number one thing in your business plan is determine who you are going to serve. So the second part is what we call value propositions. All right. So what unique value or solution does your product or service offer that solves a particular problem or fulfills a need for these target customers? Let's take the last example that I mentioned. Let's say you want to help the Nigerians in the UK or in the United States specifically. You want to help them to own their own property here in Nigeria. Now, the value proposition may not necessarily be house. The greatest value proposition in that particular case is actually trust, because so many Nigerians in diaspora have been scammed even by family members who collect money from them to build property for them, and then they never get it done. So your value proposition might be trust. So often your value proposition, you want to look beyond just the physical product or the physical service you're giving to what is actually the intrinsic value, the intangible, the emotional benefits, the spiritual benefits behind that product. So you've got to have a very key value proposition for these customers. When Jumia came into Nigeria, there was initial resistance, because by that time, I mean, we take it for granted today that people buy things online with their cards. But at the time that Jumia came in, people were very reluctant, because, a lot of people have been scammed online. So people were very reluctant to put their banking information or their card information online. And then Jumia came up with this value proposition, which was fantastic. They called it payment on delivery. So it was actually Jumia that started that e-commerce innovation here in Nigeria. So, but today we take it for granted. So it now removed all the obstructions or the objections to people buying things online. So your value proposition is key. Very, very important. Maybe you want to set up a gym, and then you're targeting women who have just had a baby. That's how specific you really want to be, because the messaging you are going to give, like we'll see later, the messaging from your gym will be very, very different if it is targeted to a particular. And so your value proposition to those people, many of them are really concerned that when they have a baby, that they would blow up and then never, So you could have a value proposition that promises them, that your services, your program will help them to continue to use the clothes that they used before they got pregnant. So they will still fit into that cloth. So that kind of imagery. Now the third one is channels. So you're going to ask yourself, through which communication, distribution, and sales channels do your customers want to be reached, and how do you integrate them? So that's going to be important, because you've defined who your customers are, and then you have defined what your value proposition is. So the question is, how do you connect your customer to this value? How do you reach them to tell them about it in terms of marketing? How do you reach them to fulfill the order? If they order from your business, how do you reach them? Okay, so if you're doing like training, leadership strategy training and things like that, is it going to be offline? And if so, where? What location? Is it going to be online? If so, is it going to be Zoom, Google Meet? So you think about all these channels, all right? How do you reach them? So are these people found more on LinkedIn? Are they found more on physical stores? Is that where you're going to reach them through physical stores for your retail pharmacy business? And then how do you put all these channels together to have a seamless flow in your business? So these are things you want to think about. How are you going to communicate with them? How are you going to deliver the products and services? Whether it is, if it's a virtual product or it's a physical product, how are you going to distribute it? And then what sales channels do you typically reach these people? The fourth one is customer relationships. What type of relationship does each of your customer segments expect us to establish and maintain with them? And you see, this is really important because it's one thing to bring in customers into your business, but it's another thing to retain them, to keep them. So customer relationships involve all the mechanisms you are going to put together in order to retain your customers. Okay? Um, I have a bank, who assigned a particular relationship person, to me, and that's a customer relationship. That's customer relationship. So some are like high touch. For instance, I mean, if you're a bank, and then you have some really, really very high net worth individual or individuals, like during the time that people did a lot of cash, now I think it's no longer that important. But 10 years ago, when people would need to withdraw cash, if you had a Dangote in your bank or something, the bank actually goes to Dangote, goes to those people. Dangote, you can't find him in the bank. So there are different relationships based on the categories of customers that you have. So you have to think in your business plan, what type of relationships for your different customer segments are you going to establish with them? Okay. And of course, channels also involves things like your email, like phone calls. So these are all channels you can use to reach them. And then relationships talk about, sometimes the channels and the relationships also kind of coincide. Okay. The next consideration is how you are going to make money. So you don't want to start a business or write a business plan without clearly stating how you are going to make money. And of course, this is where, if you are applying for funding, this is where the people who want to give you fund will also be very, very interested for you to articulate. So the question you want to ask is, how do we generate revenue from each of our customer segments, and what pricing mechanisms do you use? All right, what's going to be your pricing strategy? How are you going to generate revenue? Are you going to do subscription revenue model where the customer pays a certain amount of money monthly or annually? Are you going to generate money from selling tickets? Are you going to generate money? I mean, all the different ways that this business can generate money. Are you going to generate money through renting, through leasing? So this is where you list all the ways that you're going to generate revenue from the business. Number 6, you talk about the key resources. And the question here, as you're writing your business plan, is what are the key assets? Okay? The resources or capabilities that you're going to need To create that your value proposition you had talked about, right? For instance, we said that you needed that if you are serving uh, Nigerians in the diaspora in America, for instance, you are going to ask what are the resources, what are key assets, what are the capabilities that you are going to need to deliver that trust, okay, to reach your customers and to sustain your business. So this is where you talk about the kind of, for instance, you might be in Nigeria and then you're targeting those people. So you're going to need people with digital skills, very, very good digital skills. All right. So you might need people like a social media manager. You might need different kinds of skills and capabilities to be able to deliver that. So you don't want to start a business and not sit down to say, what are the assets? What are the investments and resources that we need to make in terms of human resources, in terms of capital, and all that to be able to deliver that business. So you have to think through all that. What are the key resources? So you can see, like all we are discussing so far, there are not things you need to go and pay somebody 2 million naira to do for you, like they charged me in those days, which would be an equivalent of 20 million naira today, to do a business plan for me. No, you are the one running the business, so you have this information and you can write it down. Okay. The number 7 question you want to ask yourself is for key activities, because those value propositions, for instance, are not going to make themselves. The products and the services are not going to make themselves. So you're asking, what are the essential business activities that you must perform to create, to deliver, and to maintain your value proposition? So let's give example. Like you want to open a restaurant business. What are going to be the key activities required to create and deliver and maintain it? So some of your key activities would include procurement of the food, of the raw materials, for instance. It would also include cooking the food. That's a key activity. Okay, it's key because if you don't procure, you can't cook. And then hygiene, maintaining hygiene is a key activity. So you want to list all those things. What are the things that need to happen? Okay. Security might also be a key activity. Collecting payment is also a key activity in that restaurant business. So you make a list of all the things, activities that need to happen in the business for it to survive and function. Then number 8, you're asking yourself, what are the key partnerships, right? Who are your key partners, suppliers, and which resources or activities do they provide or perform that you rely on? So under question number 8, you're writing down partners that you're going to work with. Suppliers. Your suppliers might include the bank if you have to take funding or facility from the bank. Your suppliers will include all the people in your value chain, who supply the raw materials that you use. So you want to list all of them. A supplier might also be, like software providers for the software that you use. So they give you software licenses for the software that you use to do your program. So these are your key partners. So you want to make a list of all of them. And then finally, number 9, all right, the cost structure. What are the most significant costs inherent in your business model? And how do these costs relate to your key resources, activities, and partnerships? So this is very important. What are the most important costs? What are the cost drivers in your business? You want to list all of them. I mean, if you're having a physical store, then of course your rent is going to come in there. And then your operations will also involve some significant cost. And depending on your business, logistics, so if you have to move things around and move people around, and the reason that cost structure is important to list your cost structure is that this is a place that many businesses begin to fail because they don't capture their costs. So when they are making sales, they think that all that sales is profit. But if you don't take into account, cost, let me give you a practical example. So, a woman, let's call her a house mom, okay, who is working from home because she still has some little kids that she's taking care of. So let's say that she starts a business, making baking cakes and doing cake delivery. Um, Her cost structure, she would typically say, okay, I bought flour this, I bought sugar that, I bought all these ingredients for that amount of money. So, and let's say that all these input, direct inputs for making her cake, that, it cost her, let's say, 200 Ghana cedi. And then she goes out there to sell her cake for 250 or for 300 Ghana cedi because she had bought the input for 200 Ghana cedi. But you see, what she does not realize is that she's actually losing money, even in that 300 cedis, because she didn't account for the electricity, okay, which perhaps the husband is paying that. She didn't account for the driver from the husband's office that took her to the market. She didn't account for the fuel, the transportation to and from the market. She didn't account for many other things, and maybe she has a home help who also participated in making the cake. She didn't account for the labor for that home help. And so you can find that if her cost structure is wrong, it will automatically affect her profitability. All right, so these are the 9 elements. So I want you to comment in the chat and let me know um, where you still need some clarification. We can go through this session again one of the days and then have it more practically. And so if you list your own business and your own challenges and experience and then ask a question, so we might be able to use it for a practical session. So this is where we are going to end today, and I trust that you have found some very useful information that you can use to demystify this business plan thing. I just wanted to demystify it today. So it's not something you should go and spend millions of naira or thousands of cedis to have somebody to write for you. You can put this thing down. The number one purpose, the primary purpose of business plan is not to get money. It's for you to get clear on the business that you actually want to do. And then if you go through these 9 points, you will become extremely clear. All right. So this is where we're going to end it for today's broadcast, for today's coaching. We will continue tomorrow. Mark it in your calendar. Is 8 p.m. every day, but on special days, that will change the time. I will also let you know so that you can plan ahead of time. All right, let me just see a few things on the comments before we round off. Okay, Godwin Okechuku, good to see you again. Good points, Professor Oti. Great points. Yeah, Tobias. Great. Okay, very good. Very good. All right, so thank you all. And so keep showing up, and I'll see you same time tomorrow.